Welcome, esteemed guests, to the Academy of Aesthetic Musings for our first ever Oscarina Awards. And now, a word from our sponsor. This first season marks a special occasion. Going back to the years of 1990 and 1991 is the time in which many of us, including myself, were born. And all those years ago, great ideas and hard work was being done to create some of the most memorable and remarkable game experiences that would shape our lives and the lives of countless others. But the best recognition to hope for was magazine publishers and no real preservation to speak of. Before the 90s concluded, other organizations would form to take up these mantles, but tonight we embark on our own voyage. Through careful consideration of our values, tastes, and the perspectives shared throughout the season, our collaboration will mark the shared experiences, new and old, that are worth making time in your life for. Whether you played them as a child or experiencing them for the first time, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to open this ceremony with the announcement of the first two Oscarina winners for the categories of Best Gameplay. Retro games harbor a special kind of appeal. Their simplicity enables them to prioritize one of the unique strengths that only the medium of video games can provide. And that strength is the ability to challenge us with exciting drama and genuine emotional danger. When overcome, whether it's battling alien forces or piloting a mercenary fighter jet, each of the nominees gives an experience that's hard to come away from unchanged. Here are the nominees for Best Gameplay, Challenge, and Achievement. And the Oscarina goes to Castlevania 4. Games have certainly changed over the past few years. In the old days, difficulty was a core method through which value could be quantified. Nowadays, the gaming landscape is much more diverse, but experiences that relax our senses and provoke curiosity have always been around. Whether you're wandering the halls of a dungeon looking for treasure, or simply soaking in the atmosphere of a storybook fantasy, all of the nominees offer enticing worlds to explore, and novel discoveries along the same path. Here are the nominees for Best Gameplay, Discovery, and Expression. And the Oscarina goes to Zelda, A Link to the Past. Alright, that one worked pretty well.
Yeah.
Cut. If there was a game you had to own on the Nintendo Entertainment System, it was Contra. While most console ports of arcade games generally fared worse, Contra is the reverse, containing more levels, sharper graphics, and better performance than its cabinet counterpart. Despite limited lives, the game popularized the now famous Konami code, which gave you 30 instead of 3. As a kid, this code was essential, but in retrospect, the design is such that you really don't need it. Projectiles and enemies don't clutter the screen and they move at an even pace, so keeping up with what's happening is very doable. Every stage you beat was something you accomplished. And I remember the elation you get when you finally beat a tough stage and get to see something new as a reward. I chose Contra for 2 reasons. First, the game's alien aesthetic was allegedly a result of Hitoshi Akamatsu's excitement over the film Alien by Ridley Scott. Akamatsu is being honored tonight as the original creator of Castlevania, so there's a bit of a connection there. The other reason is that it's a game that has aged enormously well. You can pick it up today, learn what to do in a few seconds, and have a good time. The NES library is full of train wrecks, and even the classics generally have something about them that feels unnecessarily unfair, glitchy, or comes with archaic and imprecise controls or graphics. But for whatever reason, Contra feels just as good as it did today as it did back in the day. And finally, on a personal note, the game represents my fondest memories spending time with my father as a child. Few things can match teaming up together to take on a world of bad guys. Contra would grow on to lead and be an inspiration for my own arcade card game, Opperman, but that's for another night.
Stop.
That's great. I wish we could have done that on camera.
I know. I was
I'm
recording part of
disappointed
that.
You asked while Richard was up there.
I didn't know.
Hey, Corvette, what's in your pocket there? Show me what that is.
Well, since you asked, you mean the latest masterpiece of fantasy storytelling from LucasArts' Brian Moriarty?
There it is.
That's fantastic. Whenever you're ready.
Sure.
Are you all set, Braden?
Yep.
Alright. We are able to use games more or less effectively based on the quality of their interface. A finely crafted interface will help a game feel as natural as your own 2 hands. It may even add additional feeling and character to the act of using your game, whereas a less elegant interface may disconnect you from the game and remind you of the screen that divides you from the video game characters. Your interface can decide if your game is as clumsy and random as a blaster, or an elegant weapon for a more civilized age. Today, we would like to recognize video games from 1990 to 1991 that exemplify the best aspects of an effective and interesting interface. Here are the nominees for Best Interface. And the Oscarina for best interface goes to Loom. I did too, actually. Visual immersion, in a way, is the support character of video game categories. It acts more to enhance a game's qualities rather than acting as the central focus of the game experience. A visually immersive game that lacks any other qualities is not a game worth experiencing. But if a game does have artistic and engaging aspects, the visual immersion can improve many of them, from storytelling to exploration to challenge. And in the same way that we thank our party healers when they graciously keep our characters alive and thriving, today we would like to appreciate the games that support their qualities with outstanding visual immersion. Here are the categories for best visual immersion. And the Oscarina for best visual immersion goes to Castlevania 4.
And no one's surprised. No.
For real.
Isn't it kind of hilarious that I would consider games like Hollow Knight to look better than Call of Duty World War II from the same year, which cost at least 500 times more money to make? Could this be because I'm biased? No, it's the art direction that is wrong. Sure, a larger budget can provide visuals that are higher fidelity, with better frame rates and improved technology, but a skilled artist can shape a limited number of pixels to convey emotion, capture the imagination, and communicate information to the player, such that it can surpass even the highest budget experiences. It is this type of skill that we wish to recognize with this year's award for Best Art Direction. Here are the nominees for Best Art Direction. And the winner for best art direction goes to
So deliberate.
Loom.
Great choice.
Loom for art direction.
Get out of here! Get out of here!
We all like it.
I get why it had that like kind of fairy tale
It has a-
Disney aesthetic.
Castlevania can't win everything, okay?
Yeah.
And like
It
you should have
can.
known better though, because I remember we like paused the game and had to stop and go look at how much detail is here, and you were like, Loom.
Loom appeals to me more. Castlevania
That's fair.
is a superior game in most ways, but I gotta say, Loom just appeals to me more.
It just has a great like wandering through a fantasy world aesthetic, and it's a very unique take on a fantasy world.
And
To
come
me.
on, you saw those colors. It was beautiful.
Castlevania has a very strong art
Gothic.
direction, but it's also very like standard to its genre.
I would contest that because my main argument was that they were blending gothic horror and Greek mythology
Okay.
and
Okay.
like
Universal.
Universal horror pictures, and then stuff like Indiana Jones. So it's got a weird blend that actually looks quite different, especially if you're going to compare with like Ghosts and Goblins, which
I would
I
also
slaughtered that
contest that Loom does also really cater to its audience in that fantasy realm. I just think it looks better.
yeah. So it's his bias pick. I
It
hope
is
you
a bias
personally
pick. I know.
responsible.
I
I will say, and this
It's
one,
fantasy and LucasArts. Like, how do you expect to go against that?
yeah, I mean that's fair. I shouldn't have had you. I will say Castlevania came up as 1, 2, 2, 2. So you all put it in as second, and it was my first
Yeah.
choice. But then you all did first choice for Loom, which is why it didn't. And I had it at fourth, so I was like,
Yeah.
You just
You were
have
out-
to very impartially next year choose voters, additional ones.
Nah.
He's just gonna
Right.
induct Castlevania every other year.
no, it's what you guys love though.
You can
So-
vet them before they
Except
vote.
The council has spoken.
yeah,
voted you out.
You guys love Loom.
We did.
Mhm.
But Lewis,
I could-
like, I hadn't even heard of that game until we did this. So it's like a newfound love.
Mhm.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah.
Is Tyler drinking some water? Okay. There we go. That's got to go in there.
To put it another way, Castlevania has been granted rank on this council, but we do not grant it.
What is with all the Star Wars references today?
We know them.
I can't help it. Like prequel memes has inundated my
Yeah,
brain. It's
prequel
just
memes is
every
pretty
other
great.
Especially
thing.
right now, because of how bad everything else is.
I want to hear what Braden thinks. He's back there.
He's so
He's running
quiet.
the show.
What do you think, Braden? You saw them all.
Mr. Feet.
I know why Loom appeals to Tyler because of his projects he's working on.
Thank you.
If I had to vote, I would vote on not playing any of the games, but I would vote on Zelda personally.
Okay, fair enough.
That's fair.
I
You,
like
you
Zelda
lost,
so
but
much.
that's fair. That was mine. That poor Zelda. You guys ranked that one really low. I think I had mine. Zelda was like third, I think, for me.
My problem is Zelda comes
Second.
online for me, and I would say starting from the next Zelda game.
Yeah.
So another thing is that we're probably kind of biased because we've seen like what Zelda and Castlevania become later on.
Yeah,
So
which
we're
is
already
nice.
sort of used to that, even though this was like the start. Whereas nothing like Loom has shown up, you know,
Ever.
in.
That's fair, but then you must resist. No, I'm just kidding.
Block it out of your mind.
I agree with you, where there is that sort of innate bias that we really can't control for because we know what
Yeah.
stuff afterwards looks like as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know that I guess for me, yeah, there might be a bit of a because I've not. No, well, no, this is entirely true. I've played the old Castlevanias before, but I've not really played too much of the other ones. I've dabbled like slightly.
Like
So-
I play like I call Castlevania kind of like generic gothic, but that's not really fair to it because I'm used to playing all the other newer Castlevanias.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
This
there-
helped inspire that. Build
right.
Up to it, yeah.
Whereas like there's not much that's like in Loom's wheelhouse, so it has a stronger sense of art direction even as the years goes on.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I think that's part
fair.
of I think that's part of why Loom wins.
You're doing a terrible job of just sitting there looking pretty.
Look,
You should have voted.
He's pretty and he has
I'll
taking
vote
it.
next year.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious. So I thought you were gonna go with Monkey Island 2, and that was
I
my
was really
second.
tempted.
Which I thought would have been a suitable choice because it still has the same innovation that Loom did, but it was stylistically more interesting to me, anyways.
It is. It's
So I was
it's
kind of like, all
better.
right,
It's like the next. It was his like second one.
right.
But Loom,
Wait, was
yeah.
Loom second or first too?
No, Loom was first
Loom was first. Okay.
in like January, and then Monkey Island came out in December of that
Okay.
Right,
same
and it
year.
had better. You could tell the pixel art had evolved by the time
Right.
we got to Monkey Island.
Because I watched the documentary on Monkey Island, I didn't know too much behind the scenes of Loom. But
Yeah, I don't know much about it.
I imagine
What
it was
Corey
very
told me.
similar. Some of the same teams and things.
Similar. Yeah, well, somewhat. I know that Mark Ferrari did like most of the art for Loom, whereas he was just one of the 3 artists for Monkey Island and whatnot, you know. But I really like Mark
Was
Ferrari's
he
art.
the one that did, like, he was the one that showed it, he could use those 16
Yeah,
colors?
he's the one who invented
Yes,
those
he's
dithering
amazing.
techniques and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
He is such a big thing in the pixel art community. I dabble in pixel art for funsies because I like making
Oh, you've
Fire
heard of him
Emblem
before,
sprites.
like with Game Awards?
Yes, I actually had. Not a
Wow.
lot. I just knew of him from the Fire Emblem We Make Portraits community. And
Cool.
There you go.
So, he's really good about dithering, apparently.
Dithering, that's what.
Yeah.
Oh, the dithering. Foiled again. Yeah, that one. So there was like 3 this year where I was like, I don't know about that, you guys. And this was one of them, the art direction. I was like,
Once we get more people voting, the results will probably be less.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, but like I said, it's fine. Like, so I'll say this too. Like, this was one of the contested categories, and this is the one that stayed the same because it had the 3 first choice votes. So I'm happy to take that loss because that means you guys really love it. So that's like, that's fair. Like, I'll accept that. But nothing else. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so I'm just going to launch into a second induction to break things up a little bit. And this is for Konami as a developer. So Konami is not a well-liked game publisher, and for good reason. The list of mistreatments of their employees, scummy business practices, and destructions of their own IPs is a mile long, and is something that has been with the company since its inception. It goes without saying, but the Oscarinas does not endorse the mistreatment of any human being. So why is this company with such a bad reputation being honored tonight? Well, it isn't. No, this induction is for the crew behind the innumerable awe-inspiring classics. From the boots-on-the-ground combat of Contra and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, to cult hits like Legend of the Mystical Ninja, to the highly influential Metal Gear and Castlevania sagas, the Konami development staff contained a cast of highly talented and dedicated game designers whose passion marks a rite of passage for any gaming enthusiast to experience. At their heyday, Konami was the name that brought with it a level of polish, quality, and momentum that was rare for the time. When a game did fail, it was often the case of putting people to work on projects that didn't capture their interest. But from their body of work, it's clear to see that, given some freedom and proper resources, the development staff turned out classic over classic. And the sheer volume of nostalgic memories so many of us share with their games is something we cannot ignore. Here's to the crew who poured their blood, sweat, and tears into these games, to the childhoods who were all impacted by them, and perhaps to one day seeing the company have a change of heart by finally having one.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't that be nice?
No, you see, you don't understand. They already gave their heart to something, and it's called money.
It's called money. But like I said, the development staff was cool. I've been reading, there's a really cool website. He takes interviews and translates them into English. And they're usually revolving around old retro games. And he has a lot about Konami games. And it's really cool to hear their insight when they're working on it. And they're pretty dedicated to it. And if you're playing NES and even Super Nintendo games, if you saw the Konami logo, that meant, okay, this is gonna be a quality game. Whereas if you saw anything else, it was taking a chance. The only other one I think I would compare with that would be Nintendo.
I was gonna say Nintendo the seal of quality was literally so parents who knew nothing about games knew this was gonna be good.
Yeah, well.
And our next category is Best Female Character. Now, I think we can all say, and we all know, that video games have had a rather contentious relationship with female characters. But looking to the past, we actually found several different examples of wonderful, strong female characters. And now, we now present the nominations for Best Female Character. And now for the winner of Best Female Character. We have Lady Stigna from Loom.
Shows well.
For our next category, we have Best Male Character. Video games have always had a wealth of amazing male characters, from cool whip-slinging guys, gunslingers, handsome sword-wielding heartthrobs, knights in shining armor. They have quite a variety. And we went through so many of them to pick out the best nominations for Best Male Character. All right then, and the winner for Best Male Character is Guybrush Threepwood from Monkey Island, our pun-wielding pirate boy.
Pun-wielding pirate, I love that.
That's what it is. And our next category is for Best Narrative Composition, which really just means best storytelling. Video games are really amazing, and they allow us to tell stories that they can be told in a different way than any other medium. In one game, you can play as God, forming your own worlds. In another game, you can be a pirate, going around. You could be the knight in shining armor, experiencing your own fairy tale. There are so many different stories to behold. And here are the nominations for Best Narrative Composition. Okay, with no more ado, Best Narrative Composition, the winner is... Loom, our own weird fairy tale.
So for this part of, well, it's not exactly induction, but this is for the Onyx winner. And the Onyx winner is not determined by Best Pixel or anything like that. The Onyx winner is specifically the game that earns the most recognition out of all of our criterias. And that winner is Castlevania 4. So we've got a themed cartridge, the manual, and the box for preservation's sake.
There are a few things that stand out to us when experiencing a video game than the sounds that accompany it. Hearing those sounds that led you through trials and adventures have a tendency to stick with you long after the first time hearing them. So without further ado, I present the nominees for the Best Sound Atmosphere.
Affirmative, you are cleared to land.
All right, and the winner for Best Sound Atmosphere is, of course, Castlevania 4. All right. Were you guys all happy with that result?
Yeah.
Mitch is happy with that result.
No, you guys are too. That
I mean,
was
that's-
everyone's
that's
first
true.
choice
That
for
was-
that one. It
Oh,
was a
for
unanimous
you?
vote.
Wow.
Wow, really?
Yep.
I'm kind of
I
curious.
do remember doing that now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, geez, there's so many sound effects in it. They have more.
Yeah.
Like sound effects than like Super Mario World for a game that's like a third of the length or something like that. And
Yeah.
they really have a large variety and they really punch too as far as like being memorable. So, yep.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to Best Musical Score. Composers are often challenged with creating the emotion that capture your experience within the detailed worlds of video games. I have the distinct pleasure, therefore, of presenting the Best Musical Score. Here are the nominations. And the Oscarina for the best musical score, Arcus Odyssey. Despite music's effect on us as the players, we find that there's always at least one song that sits with us more powerfully than the rest. This year, we tallied our votes and presented our arguments to determine which of those tracks affected each of us the most. With that, here are the nominees for the best musical track. All right. And with that, the Oscarina's best musical track goes to Waterfall, Castlevania. Naturally.
So our final induction, like I said at the beginning, there's 3, and this one is for an auteur, and the auteur I've chosen is Hitoshi Akamatsu. Creator of 1986's Castlevania, Hitoshi Akamatsu conceived of a game that merged 3 disparate influences, and would serve as the origin point for not only a long-standing series of whip-wielding adventures, but a backbone in an entire genre. Merging Hollywood action movies such as Indiana Jones and the Universal horror pictures with Greek mythology, and finally Gothic literature, the end result is a curious blend of ancient and modern aesthetics. As the creative director for the original Castlevania trilogy on NES, Akamatsu's work presents an experience unlike any other on the platform. I'd like to take this time to share a few paraphrased details from a Shumpilations article that tracked down a series of tweets from a coworker at Konami. While the games are relentlessly hard, Akamatsu joked how Mario always dies in one hit. Quote, "At least Simon and Trevor have health bars." End quote. This attention to detail also extends to his personal philosophy that a designer should be able to beat the games they build. As a film buff, Hitoshi also would frequently comment about the visual frame of his games, and that the music and art direction were consciously built to evoke a cinematic flair. The music for the series is nothing short of iconic, and complements the elaborately detailed art direction that was so rich, virtually no other game on the system could compare. While it was not a game from my childhood, in visiting it now as an adult, it's hard not to stop and marvel at the wonderfully drawn tapestries of Dracula's castle, adorned across stone walls and windows. While not exclusively a visual component, art does have its origins in visuals. And so we're remiss not to recognize how far Akamatsu and his team pushed themselves to create a truly mesmerizing experience. And yet the poor sales numbers and reputation of an unforgiving challenge with Castlevania 3 led to his demotion and eventual departure from Konami. Since then, the series has become riddled with surprising highs and frequent lows. It's a series that ultimately lives on through the Metroidvania genre and its many illusions across the gaming landscape. While we may always wonder what Castlevania would have looked like had Akamatsu been given a longer future with it, no one can dispute the influence of his passionate artist. Are we set for level design?
Yep.
If we could think of a game in two halves, one half would be the player's experiences, while the other would be the world in which the player explores. From the intricate web of levels in Super Mario World to the balance of dungeons and overworld obstacles in Zelda, to the beautifully handcrafted halls of Castlevania, scenario design rewards the places you escape to and the many trials and encounters faced along the way. Here are the nominees for Best Level Design. And the Oscarina goes to Castlevania 4. Games are rarely developed by one person, and even when they are, it takes the combined elements of art, music, programming, and conceptualization to create a singular vision that is thematically engaging. But what sets this category apart from the rest ultimately is in how well all of its disparate elements fuel the gameplay, which in turn unearths the emotional and thought-provoking messages hidden within. Whether it's balancing tongue-in-cheek humor with the backdrop of war, persevering across the horrors of the Transylvania estate, or the melancholy of being made a sympathetic god of loyal subjects. Each of the contenders reaches the deeper parts of the soul that few others can match, making games a truly artistic medium. Here are the nominees for Best Direction. And the Oscarina goes to Act Razor.
Really?
Yeah.
yeah, they need an indie like spiritual successor to ActRaiser one of these days, or maybe like an ActRaiser 3. I feel like there's another kernel of goodness there that more games ought to try and capture, but alas, Quintet went out of business.
You can do it.
Yeah.
You could. Yeah, I
Great design.
put the kind of ingenuity of the way it combines genres for higher on interface, but it was still pretty high for direction. You made a good pitch for it. It does do a lot of really interesting things, and the whole playing God element was really fascinating, how it creates that melancholy. So yeah, it's such a weird game that I've just taken forever to come around to, but I do like it. It's interesting. All right.
Was Castlevania though?
What's that?
Was Castlevania second?
No, that was my first choice.
In the voting.
Oh, in the voting? I have to look at it again, but I think it was actually Final Fantasy, if I'm not mistaken.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is, sure. 12 years ago, it seemed to me that an alternative perspective, one that focused on artistry and player catharsis, was something that was lacking in the world of video games. I took many of you along with me in that campaign, and what was initially a fun pastime has now grown into something I hope us and many others can look back on with renewed interest in the artistic achievement and importance of game preservation for many years to come. I'd like to take this moment to thank you all for attending this season's ceremony, for providing your deepest insights and sincere patience in helping the formation of the Oscarinas come together. I'd also like to thank our crew for their support in capturing this event, and a special thank you to everyone watching at home. This season has laid the groundwork for a bright future that I look forward to experiencing with you all. Finally, I'd like to welcome Corbett Capon to the stage. Corbett has been instrumental in serving as mini chairman of the Academy and has gone above and beyond in helping shape the vision of the Oscarinas, not the least of which is in his more than acquired taste. Oh, you got that.
Oh.
But sincerely, art is something sometimes a matter of taste, and when my own limits are reached, Corbett took the mantle to expand beyond that. And so it is our great pleasure to close out the first season of the Oscarinas with our final two announcements, the winners of the years 1990 and 1991. Here are the nominees for Best Pixel. And the Oscarina goes to Loom.
See, it was important that Mitch present that so that the audience knew that I didn't switch the vote, the winner in for Loom at the end of the day.
True.
So, next we have the winner for Best Pixel 1991 and the Oscarina.
Hold on, we gotta do the nominees.
Oh, you're right. Here are your nominations for Best Pixel 1991. And then the Oscarina for Best Pixel 1991 goes to... Castlevania 4.